Hi there and welcome back to my kitchen. Today we are making Portuguese vegetable soup. Now Portuguese vegetable soup is different than any other vegetable soup I've eaten in my life, and I am a huge soup fan, but I like my soup to be robust and packed with flavor. My husband and I have spent a lot of time in Portugal, and one thing I noticed is on a lot of the menus in the restaurants they serve this vegetable soup, and I thought it was really unusual to see a soup repeated on so many menus in so many different restaurants. So we tried the soup and we absolutely fell in love with it. When I got home, I decided to replicate that soup, and it took a little bit of effort, but I think I've nailed it. This is not only incredibly delicious, but it is packed with nutrition. It has carrots and potatoes, turnips and onions, leeks, butternut squash, and also it has white beans for your protein source. This is a very easy soup to put together. It takes about 10 minutes to prep everything and about 20 minutes to cook. And you'll be eating dinner within 30 minutes, but this soup has been a hit for everyone that I've served it to. So let's dive in. Now, when we were in Portugal, we take advantage of those farmers markets because the produce there is just indescribable. One of the ingredients in this soup is a turnip, and I am not a fan of turnips. But when I started figuring this soup out, I knew there was something that was extra earthy in the soup, and I finally determined it was a turnip. So I'm going to just cut this into big chunks, and that's the nice thing about this soup is nothing has to be precise. We're just going to take all these veggies, cut them into big chunks, cook them till they're tender, and we'll blend them, and it will make the creamiest, most delicious, vibrant vegetable soup you have ever eaten. And people are always amazed that it does not contain any cream or butter. So let's get this turnip chopped. Now, like I mentioned, I love soup, but I have really high expectations when I eat soup. I want it to be packed with flavor and filling. The nice thing about this soup is it contains potatoes. And in most of my recipes, if I want a creamy consistency, I will use potatoes instead of cream. And I'll just blend the potatoes after they get soft, and it adds the richest, thickest consistency to a soup. So I'm just going to chop these potatoes, and I'll set these aside, and then we'll move on to the carrots. Next, I'm just chopping these carrots into some big chunks, and the nice thing about the carrots is they give this soup a very vibrant color. I'll toss these in a bowl, and we'll move on to the onion. Now, I had a yellow onion, but a white onion will work. I say use whatever you have. Our last vegetable will be our leeks. Now, leeks are often filled with dirt and sand, and the way I process a leek is I just cut off the root, and a lot of people cut off all the green, but I find that the green has a tremendous amount of flavor. So I recommend just cutting off the tips and keeping the rest of this green, because this is going to be cooked until this becomes very tender, and once we puree it, it will work out beautifully. When you cut your leek, I suggest cutting down through the center and then lay it open, and you're going to want to slice this into some chunks because we're going to put it in a bowl of water and rinse it very well until we're sure we have all the sand and dirt removed from those leeks. I rinsed and I drained my leeks, and when I rinsed them, I separated all of the leaves and made sure I got all of the sand and the dirt removed. So I'll set these aside, and let's just move on to our spices. As I mentioned, I expect my soup to have a lot of really bold flavor. We'll start with garlic, and I know you're thinking, holy cow, that's the biggest garlic I've ever seen. But this is elephant garlic, and it is incredibly mild. It's our favorite. And again, I'm just giving this a rough chop because this is all going through the blender. And we're going to saute this with our leeks and onions before we throw everything else in the pot. Good enough. The seasoning for this soup is really very simple. It's packed with so much flavor from the vegetables. It doesn't take a lot to just amp it up a little bit. So we have the garlic and of course thyme, and I put thyme in almost all of my soups. A little bit goes a long way, but don't leave it out. Black pepper, bay leaves, and I'm always very generous with my bay leaves. Be sure you count the number of bay leaves so you know how many to retrieve before you blend your soup. And then finally, bouillon. I make my own bouillon because I really got sick of buying the bouillon in the store that was full of mystery ingredients and oil. This is very easy to make. It's incredibly inexpensive. If you want my recipe for making the bouillon, I've got the link down below, or you can also purchase the store-bought bouillon if that's the direction you want to go. So let's get started on putting this together. Now, if you follow my channel, you know I'm a fan of the water sauté. I never put a big puddle of oil in the bottom of my pan to sauté. It's simply not necessary. Oil has 130 calories per tablespoon, and it's so easy to tip that bottle and glug 300 or 400 calories into the bottom of your pan. So I just heat my pan, I will splash a little water, and when the water dances, I know that it's ready to toss in my veggies. So we'll start with our aromatics by putting in our onions and our leeks. And I'm going to cook these onions and leeks until they begin to cook down a little bit. Now, as your leeks and onions begin to cook down, you'll start to notice a little bit of brown in the bottom of the pan, and this is perfect. And once you add a little water to that, that will begin to break that fond loose, and you'll start to get a nice caramelized color. And I'll cook these for just a couple more minutes, and then we'll toss in the garlic. Now my leeks and onions are tender, and I'm going to add the garlic. And the reason I wait to add the garlic is because if you saute garlic too long, it can become bitter. So I always add it at the end, and I'll saute it for up to a minute, but no longer. It's been about a minute, and I'm adding my spices. And I like to add my spices to the saute because it helps them bloom, and it will give the soup just a little extra flavor. So I've added my thyme, my black pepper, and my bay leaves. And I'm adding 5 large bay leaves. All right, next I'm adding our water, and if you don't want to use water and bouillon, you can use 8 cups of veggie stock that you can buy in the store. So really, from this point forward, it's very simple. I'm adding the stock, and then we'll add the veggies, and I'll let those cook until they're tender. Let's add those veggies. I've got our potatoes, butternut squash, and sometimes I buy the butternut squash that's already cut in the store because I may not have time to buy and peel and cut one. I just want something really quick. So by all means, if that's the route you need to go, then do it. The turnips, our carrots, and our beans. And all of these vegetables have protein, but the beans add a little extra protein. My husband always laughs at me because my soup pot is always really, really full. I'm going to bring this to a boil. I'll put the lid on it to make that happen a little bit faster. And it will just boil until the vegetables are tender, and we'll remove those bay leaves and we'll blend this soup and it'll be ready. The nice thing about this soup, it does make a large batch, but it freezes very well. If you freeze your soup, when you thaw it, just run it through the blender again and it'll come right back to the original consistency that you had when you first made it. A friend asked me what kind of bouillon or stock I use in my soup, and I use whatever I have. So if it's my vegetable bouillon or my chickenless bouillon or beefless bouillon, that's what I use in my soup. And I learned that a lot of chefs, when they cook a dish that calls for a broth or a stock, they will use a combination, and it just adds a little bit extra flavor. So I've cooked my veggies until they're tender, and keep in mind that a turnip is a little bit harder than a potato, so it has to cook a little bit longer. And I've pulled out all of my bay leaves, and now we'll just turn off the heat and we're going to process this in the blender until it's nice and smooth. Because this makes a lot of soup, I'm going to blend it in 2 batches. When you fill your blender with your soup, be sure not to fill it too full. I like to put about 2/3 in the blender. It's just a safe amount to blend a hot soup. You don't have to blend this in a high-speed blender. Any blender will work fine. That just took a couple of minutes, and I'll blend the second half and it'll be finished. I'll just return all this soup to the pot, and it will stay nice and hot until I'm ready to serve it. Honestly, we eat soup year-round, but this soup is perfect for a cold winter night. Just look how thick and creamy this is. I like to garnish it with a little bit of spinach. This smells delicious. It's just like I remember the soup in Portugal. I hope you give this recipe a try. If you do, please add some comments and let me know how it went. And I appreciate you spending time with me today. If you enjoyed our time together, please click the like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.